every thought you have, every single move you make, it's all powered by this incredible, intricate biological network. So today, we're going to dive deep and explore that network, your body's very own information superhighway, the nervous system. Seriously, just think about it for a second. You decide you want a cup of coffee. And boom, before you even fully form that thought, your arm is already moving. Your fingers are wrapping around the handle. How in the world does that happen so fast? It feels like magic, right? Well, the answer, the secret sauce, is this massive, complex network. We call it a biological superhighway for a reason. It's transmitting information at speeds that are just mind-boggling. It coordinates everything, from your heartbeat keeping you alive to you figuring out a tough puzzle.
Okay, so if we're going to understand this whole highway system, we have to start small. I mean, really small. We've got to look at the individual cars carrying all that information. So let's zoom all the way in and meet the fundamental building block of it all, the neuron. So what is a neuron? It's this super specialized cell, and it's basically built for one job, processing and zapping messages around your body. And get this, everything that makes you you, your thoughts, your memories, your ability to learn a new skill, it all comes down to how these amazing little cells talk to each other. And if you look at a neuron, it's structured kind of like a piece of high-tech electrical wiring. You've got the dendrites, which act like antennas, catching the incoming signals. The cell body is the command center that processes it. And then there's the axon, this long cable that shoots the signal out. What's really cool is that this cable is insulated by something called a myelin sheath, and that insulation is what lets the signal travel crazy fast. Right, so we've got billions of these tiny messengers. But how do they actually, talk to each other? How does a message get all the way from your brain to your hand? It's a really cool two-part process. Here's the key thing to get. It's not like one long, continuous wire. A signal actually travels electrically inside a single neuron. But then to get to the next neuron, it has to make a jump. And for that jump, it switches to a chemical signal. It's like a relay race. So let's break down exactly how that handoff works. Okay, so the electrical part is called an action potential. The best way to think about it is that a resting neuron is like a tiny charged battery with a negative charge inside. When it gets a signal, these little gates fly open and a flood of positive ions rushes in. This creates this massive spike of electrical energy. That's the action potential, and it just zips down the axon like a wave. We're talking speeds of over 200 miles per hour sometimes. It's ridiculously fast. So what happens when that electrical wave hits the end of the line, the axon terminal? It triggers the release of these tiny chemical messengers. We call them neurotransmitters. And they float across this microscopic gap. It's called the synapse. And they act like little chemical keys. They find the perfectly shaped locks, or receptors, on the next neuron, pop in, and boom, the message is delivered. Now, this whole communication system isn't just about go, go, go signals. Neurons actually send two main types of messages. You have excitatory signals, which basically tell the next neuron, fire, get going. But just as important, you have inhibitory signals that say, hold on, don't fire. They're like the brake pedal. This constant balance between the gas pedal and the brake is absolutely critical for controlling, everything your body does. And the type of message really depends on the specific chemical messenger being used. For example, you've got acetylcholine, which helps you move your muscles. Dopamine is that one you've probably heard of. It's tied to reward, motivation, that feel-good feeling. Serotonin helps regulate your mood. And then there's GABA, which is basically the brain's main brake pedal. It's the most common inhibitory messenger, telling all the other neurons to just chill out. All right, so we've seen how these individual neurons chatter away. Now let's zoom way back out and see how these billions and billions of cells are organized into the grand network, the whole shebang that is the nervous system. The entire system is really broken down into two main parts. First, you have the central nervous system, or the CNS. That's the big boss, your brain and your spinal cord. This is the command center where all the big decisions are made. Then you have the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. Think of that as the network of all the other nerves, the cables and wires connecting the command center to every single part of your body, carrying messages back and forth, back and forth. Now let's look a little closer at that peripheral network, the PNS, because it's also split into two jobs. You've got the somatic system, which handles all the stuff you consciously control, deciding to walk, talk, or pick up that coffee cup we mentioned earlier. Then you've got the autonomic system. Autonomic sounds like automatic, and that's exactly what it is. It runs all the background processes you never have to think about, your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion. And this automatic system has two very different modes, like two sides of a coin. First, there's the sympathetic system. This is your fight or flight response. Imagine a car suddenly swerves in front of you. Your heart pounds, you're wide awake. That's your sympathetic system kicking in. Its counterpart is the parasympathetic system. This is your rest and digest mode. This is you after a big meal, relaxing on the couch. It calms everything down to save energy. These two are constantly working against each other to keep your body in perfect balance.
Wow, we have covered a ton of ground, haven't we? We've gone from a single tiny cell all the way up to the entire network that literally makes you, you. So let's just take a second and boil this down to the most important points you should take away from all this. Okay, so at its core, here's what you need to remember. First, your whole nervous system is built from these specialized cells called neurons. Second, these neurons talk to each other using this cool two-step dance of electricity inside the cell and chemicals between cells. Third, the whole network is split into the central nervous system, the command center, and the peripheral nervous system, all the nerves out in the body. And finally, that peripheral system handles both your voluntary actions and all the automatic stuff that keeps you running. And in the end, it all comes down to this. This system, it's responsible for everything we experience. Every single sight, every thought, every emotion, it's all just patterns of these signals firing.
Which, it kind of leaves us with a pretty mind-bending question, doesn't it? If your very consciousness, your sense of self, is just a specific pattern of these electrical and chemical signals firing across this network, what does that really mean? What happens when that intricate pattern changes, even just a little bit? Something to think about.